It has finally been revealed as the Philadelphia Eagles NFL schedule has released today, and we now know when the Eagles will be facing off against their opponents. And this has massive implications on this Eagles season. And we'll break down our reaction to the schedule and a game by game preview on a special edition of Eagles Digest. What's going on, guys? Alex Brooks back here with another episode of Eagles Digest as the NFL schedule has finally released, and we now know when we are going to play the opponents of this 2026 season. And, getting right into this episode, as I am going to reveal the NFL schedule. If you guys haven't seen it already, it is right here. The Eagles will be kicking off the season against the Washington Commanders, and they have a bunch of interesting games during this season. A lot of different storylines. They are going to London. I mentioned on Eagles Digest in a short. Definitely, am excited to see what the Eagles can do this season, and what they can bring when it comes to all of these different games. And I'm very excited to really break down everything when it comes to this schedule. But before we get all into talking about this NFL schedule, this video is brought to you by our sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app, and it's the best way to get in on all the action when it comes to live sports. And we'll break down some of my crazy picks as well as some awesome promotions a little later in this video. But make sure you guys, when you download the Prize Picks app, you use that code DIGEST, as it really helps out the channel a ton here on Eagles Digest, and also helps us give you guys all the content you need when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. So getting back into the conversation about this NFL schedule, there are definitely there's definitely some highlights when it comes to this schedule. There's definitely a lot of highlights when you can kind of break it down, week by week. And we'll definitely get into that, but I wanted to share you guys my highlights of, just some matchups that I'm really looking forward to watching and covering here on Eagles Digest. We got to go with week 1. We got to start off with the home opener versus the Washington Commanders. Those are that is definitely, that is the week that, we're all going to be circling. Week 1, it's against the Commanders. The Commanders, they have, a sour taste in their mouth because they didn't have Jaden Daniels last year and really felt like they weren't competitive. But they are, looking for that revenge against the NFC Championship game. So a lot of tensions flaring. There was a lot of tensions flaring last year. So I'm definitely expecting a really big grudge match against the Commanders. And then week 3, Monday Night Football at Chicago. I'm very excited to see what Jalen Hurts can do in Chicago. It's not when they're not going there when it's going to be very cold. So that is a plus for the Eagles, getting the Chicago Bears out of the way and not having to worry about any of the, frigid cold when it comes to November and December. Week 5 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. I'm very excited to see what they can do across the pond in London. The last time they were able to do that, they were able to do, win the game with Carson Wentz. So excited to see Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni for the first time across the pond. And then when we go over to week 17, Sunday Night Football at San Francisco, that's going to be a huge matchup there, because you look at what the, San Francisco 49ers, they beat us in the playoffs. So you got to make sure that, you got to get revenge against San Francisco 49ers. And then obviously all of the division games when it comes to Dallas, against them on Thanksgiving, as well as early in the season. And then Washington and the New York Giants, you always got to make sure you circle those every single year. So when looking at this NFL schedule, there's definitely, I mentioned the highlights of this NFL schedule, but I'm going to break down, this whole schedule and kind of go over like a small preview on what to really expect from each one of the games. So when we start off with the Washington Commanders, we are going to start off with the home opener between Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels. That is where we're going to see Sean Mannion, come out with his new scheme. This is where we're going to see Makai Lemon, Eli Stowers. We're going to see a new offense, a new passing offense. How is Saquon going to get involved? How is the defense going to do in year 3 with Vic Fangio? That's going to be a huge storyline. against a team in the Commanders who was trying to really, leave 2025 in the past and trying to turn over a new leaf and really, get back to where they were in the NFC Championship game. And then when we go over to the Tennessee Titans matchup, I mean, that's going to be an interesting matchup because the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tennessee Titans haven't really faced off against each other in the past for a while. The Eagles, the last time they faced off against the Titans was when AJ Brown had his little return game. So that's definitely going to be interesting now going into Nashville. First time they're doing that since the 2018 season. And then going over to the matchup against the Chicago Bears. And this is a very big revenge game for the Philadelphia Eagles because you look at what the Chicago Bears were able to do last year in Philadelphia. They were able to run all over this Eagles team, and that's where you kind of saw the tires coming off of the vehicle there, where you kind of didn't see this Eagles team going anywhere, knowing that their defense didn't really step up and their offense, was looking inconsistent like it did all last year. So I'm sure the Eagles are having a little bit more motivation, especially when they're going on Monday Night Football. And then it's a short week. It goes to home against the Los Angeles Rams. So the Philadelphia Eagles will face off against the LA Rams. We know how much the Rams are wanting a win against the Philadelphia Eagles, especially in Lincoln Financial Field, as they had that crazy playoff game where Saquon, did that miraculous run in the snow. Jalen Carter came up with that big stop, and the Eagles were able to advance and then eventually win the Super Bowl. But then when you go over to the Week 3 game, I was actually at that game where Jordan Davis blocked the field goal. That was one of his two blocked field goals, and the Eagles were able to win with a walk-off touchdown. So I know the Rams are really reeling for a win there. And then going over, when we go over to Week 5, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to face off against, let's look here. They are going to go a face off against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just kind of had to cheat a little bit when it came to that. So when it came to the Jacksonville Jaguars, we got to look at what the Eagles are going to approach a London game. That's going to be a huge matchup because Jalen Hurts, this is his first time going international since when they went in Brazil. So I'm excited to see how they can able to do against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are a team that really gave Philly a run for their money in 2024. So they're definitely looking for, a little bit of revenge there. And then going over to the next matchup, it's going to be against the Carolina Panthers. And, the Eagles and Panthers haven't really had a, long history, especially in the Jalen Hurts era. It hasn't really been, much more of the 2024 matchup. And they also played in 2021, but the Eagles and Panthers, it's an interesting type of dilemma there because it's, Alabama quarterback versus Alabama quarterback and Bryce Young and in Jalen Hurts. So interesting to note that the Eagles and Panthers will be facing off right after getting off of London. And then we go into the division gauntlet. We go and we start off with the Dallas Cowboys at home on Week 7. That is going to be a huge game because that's going to be on Monday Night Football. So the Philadelphia Eagles are going to, go from playing at home against the Carolina Panthers, then going and playing the Dallas Cowboys on prime time. So definitely going to be a big game. The link is going to be rocking, and I'm expecting the Eagles to have some sort of promotion, whether it's Kelly Green or blackout jerseys there. So I'm excited to see what the Eagles are able to do there. And then when we go back to the Washington Commanders, you guys already know when it's in Washington, that's where the tensions are flaring, and the Eagles are going to go and go on Sunday Night Football against the Washington Commanders. So interesting to know that they're going from Monday night to Sunday night. So that's going to be a, short week for the Eagles. And then they go in at home against the New York Giants. So the New York Giants, they're a team that's up and coming. The Eagles have to make sure that they are ready for it. They're not just the little brother who, is not doing anything during the division. They are going to be a very pesky team, and I'm expecting them to do really well this season. They have a high potential type of team, and especially with that stable leadership in John Harbaugh. And when we look at past the division, then the Eagles get a bye week. They get a bye week at Week 10. That's a That's a really relatively good bye week for the Eagles to have. It's definitely, very acceptable to know that they were at week 10. They were at week 9 last year. Didn't really, help or hurt them. So I definitely think the later bye week is not a bad thing, but Eagles have had a little bit of trouble with those types of bye weeks. So let's see if the Eagles can rewrite the ship when it comes to that. And then going over to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Battle of Pennsylvania. The Eagles, they are going to be home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 425 game on week 11. So I think that is going to be a very, very intriguing matchup because Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. Jalen Hurts, he did really well against the Pittsburgh Steelers last time. They have a new coach now in Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy has been used to Jalen Hurts playing him in the division. So, interesting matchup there, interesting storylines when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then going over to week 12, you got the Dallas Cowboys again, but it is on Thanksgiving Day. The Eagles and Cowboys will face off against each other on Thanksgiving for the first time since 2014, where Mark Sanchez came into Jerry World and completely, tore off the roof of the place, and he was able to win with Shady McCoy. So the Eagles are hoping for, the same kind of thing with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. And then when we go over to week 13, this is where I'm not going to say that the Eagles and Cardinals have any sort of rivalry, but this is the first time Jalen Hurts is going to be in State Farm Stadium since he lost Super Bowl 57. So he definitely is going to have a little bit more motivation going into that stadium, kind of, addressing his demons that came out after the Super Bowl 57 loss. And he's definitely going to want to make sure that he can, put that behind him and win in that building. And, it's a house of horrors when it comes to State Farm Stadium for a lot of teams, including the Seahawks and including the Eagles when they lost Super Bowl 57. But enough of that conversation. We're going to go over to the next matchup. When it comes to Indianapolis Colts, they're going to be home, and it's going to be the first time Shane Steichen is coming back to Philadelphia. And that will be interesting to know that, Daniel Jones coming back to Philadelphia. Shane Steichen coming back to Philadelphia. So a lot of storylines there with Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, former offensive coordinator, former quarterback of Saquon Barkley. So that's an underrated storyline type of game for the Philadelphia Eagles, knowing that they're facing off against their former offensive coordinator and former rival in Daniel Jones. And then going into the next matchup, it's going to be the Seattle Seahawks. And the Seahawks, reigning Super Bowl champions on Saturday, 5 p.m. That is going to be a very, back and forth matchup. I think that is going to be a tough, time, even when the Eagles are home. But the thing I like about this schedule is that the Eagles are home week 14, week 15, and in week 16, especially against a Houston Texans team. There's, a lot of different, scheduling matchups where it's like Saturday and then a Thursday game and then a Sunday game. It's just all over the board. And then when we go over to San Francisco and the New York Giants, rounding out that San Francisco, that's going to be a game that is going to really look at what the standings are, and then the New York Giants are definitely going to be a tough matchup, especially in MetLife. So going over to what I feel like the Eagles are going to do this season, I made my prediction board, and you guys can comment down below and let me know what you guys think of this prediction board. When it comes to these, I said that the Eagles are going to go 13-4. I think the Eagles are going to lose against the Rams in week 4, lose against the Commanders in week 8, against the Seahawks in week 15, and against San Francisco in week 17. So the Eagles are going to go 13-4. There is an outside chance that they get the first seed, but when it goes to all of these losses being against NFC opponents, especially 3 in the NFC West, I could see the Eagles dropping to the 2 or possibly 3 seed, depending on how good the NFC is this year. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this schedule. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know down in the comments what you guys think when it comes to this. I mean, we're going to ask that question. What do you think of this schedule? Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts when it comes to this Eagles NFL schedule. But before we wrap up this video, let's get into some of my picks presented sponsored by Prize Picks. Remember, guys, to use that code DIGEST when signing up today. And, getting into some of my picks, we're going to go over to MLB. It's going to be the Subway Series, Mets versus the Yankees. I'm taking more on Cam Schlittler, 5.5 strikeouts. He's been the best pitcher for the New York Yankees, so taking more on him. Clay Holmes, former Yankee, he's been really good this season. Taking more on his strikeouts. Going to be a pitcher's duel when it comes to Friday night's game. And then more on Juan Soto's walks. He's been, very more patient at the plate, especially in recent games, and he is going to be definitely trying to get on base when it comes to stealing bases, as he had a lot of stolen bases last year. And you guys can get in all the action, including some awesome promotions, including a Scary Hours payout boost. During the NBA playoffs, we're doing it live. Each night, Prize Picks is dropping a Scary Hours payout boost to level up members on all of the NBA action. But that is not it. When it comes to tomorrow, it is Flex Friday. Flex Friday is back in full swing. Boost your end of the week by using your Flex Friday payout boost to get a 40% higher payout every single Friday. And we really appreciate Prize Picks for sponsoring this video, and make sure you guys use that code DIGEST when signing up today. And we really just appreciate what you guys do here on the channel and supporting this channel, as well as make sure you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this NFL schedule. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And the Eagles NFL schedule is officially out, and we're going to have more coverage when it comes to it. So stay tuned, and let's go Birds.